Hello and welcome. It is 6 o'clock. It is definitely Wednesday and absolutely not Tuesday. I knew that all day. And welcome to the 6 o'clock club. Hi, I'm Andy from Twisted Narrative, and we are joined again by our Monday to Wednesday regular. Introduce
Hello,
yourself.
everybody. I'm Kristian. I'm regular on Monday to Wednesdays.
I'm glad you mentioned that just in case they hadn't got it.
Well, and we've got lots of people filing in chat. Hello, Jocelyn. Hello, Elsa. Hello, Leprechaun.
Yeah, hello everybody in chat. I can't see chat at the moment because I need to fundraise for an extra screen, um, which I will get at some point. I can actually just do that and look at chat, but hey, it's better to get an extra screen. I want to look
I've
like
got
some
three.
kind of Bond villain. Um, Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you very much. We're going to talk about some topics, some questions that have been raised in our Discord for discussion. But before we do that, and whilst we're waiting for everybody to join chat, we'll reflect on last night's game very, very briefly. Last night was running Vampire the Masquerade, a particular favourite of mine. I really like the way that the system works. It's a very storytelling system. We had Andrew, we had Elsa, we had Rachel, and we had Kristian here within it. And as usual, rather than me do a lot of the talking, I shall pass it across to Kristian. How did you find last night's game?
It was really good. I mean, I love the vampire world. We're well entrenched in New York. Elsa's character Dip has this bar that has been kind of a focal point for the last few sessions as we had the opening night of her bar where we were trying to make nice with some of the locals. And then we had the secondary night, which had a private party for these individuals, these children, well, 21-year-olds, 21-year-olds that are, um, their parents all went to the same fertility clinic, and there's something connecting all of them, and we know what that is. And we got to learn a little bit more about them, and we also got to learn that our coterie possibly killed their parents. Um, and we did suggest maybe we could go to the funerals, then realizing the funerals were daytime and that probably wouldn't go very well for a coterie of vampires. But we had a very interesting night with these individuals, learning a bit more about where they came from and about who they are. And it's the plot's thickening as yes, there's a lot of genetics at play, and yeah, these children are all very very similar when it comes to the blood.
Mm. No, I mean, it's great considering it was basically a prolonged 3-hour scene. In Vampire Masquerade, encounters are called scenes, and they can range from some very short sort of snapshot, sort of 5-minute kind of conversation, to what was like last night. And there was multiple cogs at play. As I say, there was, I think, 20 plus not antagonists but NPCs, all of which had links that the coterie, which is basically the party in Vampire the Masquerade, could interact with. And they cherry picked the ones that they thought would be most useful. And it's interesting because they're all socialites first and foremost. They were at this exclusive nightclub called the Viper Pit, opened up and technically run by, certainly owned by Elsa's character. And as Kristian said, it was the second night. There was a sort of soft opening on the Friday night, then on Saturday night it was a main opening night
I don't think
plus
you could call that Friday night a soft opening.
plus this private party with all these socialites, all of which um, kind of know each other and are of a very, very, very similar age. And it was quite interesting to see the mechanics at play. I pulled a fast one over on Andrew's character with a little bit of a ad lib, which was quite funny. when he was speaking, when he was approaching the son, sort of 21-year-old of a telly evangelist. But it was quite a nice little bit of ad lib there, so that was
Yes,
quite funny.
it was very good.
And I mean, for me, I genuinely think that the plot is beginning to sort of come out now. I don't think any of the players or their characters have missed the plot. It's just a lot of kind of social interaction and working out all of the moving puzzles, and they're all beginning to come together, and everything is connected one way or another. Um, so it was a fun session for me to run. And technically, you split the party 4 ways because you all went
Yeah,
and spoke to different
the
individuals.
GM's dream.
Well, like I said before, splitting the party is actually really, really cool. But it's only cool if everybody around the table is happy with that circumstance and they are interested to learn what is going on with the encounter with the person, the active player, and they're engaged in their story, and everybody's patient enough to wait for their part. And it works beautifully when that is happening. Where it doesn't feel right is when one player or a couple of players perhaps stealthing ahead of the party, and they've left the party
Yeah,
like 8 rooms behind.
yeah, that
And
happens a lot.
there's nothing technically wrong with it, as I say, if everybody around the table is happy with that kind of play.
Yeah, if you've
Uh,
agreed to it.
yeah, yeah. Well, agreed and really interested, and it kind of
Yeah,
makes choice. Um, but it can lead to, wait there, that they're 3 encounters into the adventure, and all we've done is sit in this room. And as a
yeah,
GM, you have to be empathetic and kind of sort of manage that when the party is split like that, and some of the party are having fun, and the other part of the party aren't.
yes,
Um,
yeah. It's going to be a difficult one to manage, and I guess there could be a whole 6 o'clock club on its own to how do you
yeah, yeah,
manage players and make sure everyone gets their spot, make sure there's something for everyone.
yeah.
However, I know we've got some excellent questions
Well,
from
we do,
Jack
we do.
tonight.
So yeah, just to wrap up, Vampire. I really enjoyed it. Great group, and I'm very
Yeah,
much looking
I,
forward
I
to.
took I took so many notes from everyone else's section. I'm always grateful when we do split the party because I don't often get the chance to write things down as I'm talking. So when other people are sort of taking the limelight, I'm like, great, I can write what I've done. I can now write what they're doing. I can focus on that.
Yeah,
It's brilliant. And sometimes I forget that I've said this before. Sometimes I forget I'm actually in the game, and I just think I'm listening to it and oh heck, I'm playing in this.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
wow,
No, I mean that's an important point as well. If the narrative is strong and good and engaging for an onlooker, even if you are involved in the game and you kind of almost forget, then everybody's still having fun at the table. You know, and what is important is the storyteller or the GM should give those moments to everybody at the table at some point, even if it's not in the same session. It should be, well, we've had a cool time exploring that backstory there. Next session, we're going to look at this one, and if everybody is like-minded around the table, then it works. It works. But yeah, I had a blast last night. Thank you very much to all the players again, Elsa, Christian, Rachel, and Andrew. Um, um, it wouldn't be the same without you at the table. It's what makes it. I mean, there was a there was a statement that I did make, and this was to do with Christian's character. That sometimes I very much wish that this was what we do in the shadows, and all the players basically went, well, we could do that if you really wanted, and it's
yeah,
it's, it's that kind of.
it's a fine line.
Yeah. Um, but no, you're supernatural and you engaged your kindred abilities to avoid that downside, which for your character was an important thing to do. But great fun. Anyway, hopefully we've got everybody else to chat. Let's have a look at chat before we sort of go on there. We've got Jocelyn, we have Elsa, we have Christian who's in chat and also with me. We've got Michael, we've got Kyle, we've got Jack, got a leprechaun. I think that's everybody that says hi in chat at the moment.
And Rachel's in
Oh,
chat as well.
Rachel, yeah, I saw you sort of squeezing in there using your kindred abilities to avoid my lack of vision. Hi, Rachel. Good to see you again, and thanks very much for last night. Okay, so we're gonna address some of the questions that Jack posted in Discord last week. There was three things. The main thing we're not going to discuss tonight, which was all about um, the smoke, my homebrew sort of world setting and everything else. That's a big topic and one that I don't certainly mind being interviewed over or being asked questions or having a chat about, and maybe we'll get somebody on to do that. But it's also one that can fill up a session quite easily. But the other two questions, very, very interesting as well. Um, I'm going to list them both now, and then we'll try and cover them both before the end of this club. The first question was character deaths, and I have to be very careful because quite often people say player deaths, and we all mean character
Yes.
deaths. Character deaths in games. Um, how do I personally handle them, and what is my sort of feeling? The whole sort of kind of almost elephant in the room, really. What happens if a character dies? Um, and there are multiple answers to this, as one would expect, because and again, sometimes you can find yourself in a little bit of an echo chamber, especially if you only play one system. Because if you play one system, character deaths mean something different in that system compared to other systems. I kind of run multiple systems, so we'll come to the game that I run the most of, that our audience very much has embraced and engaged with, and that is obviously 5e Dungeons and Dragons. First, and I'll move on to the other systems. Um, if I'm being really honest, rules as written, character death is actually something quite difficult to do in 5e.
Yes, it definitely feels like it's stacked against the GM. If you
Well,
sometimes you think
it's
I'm
it's it,
really, I'm
it's
really
it's stacked in favour of the players, not
yeah,
against the
yeah.
GM.
Sorry,
Uh,
yes,
I mean, there's a subtle difference there. I'm not being sort of arsy about
no,
that, but there is a subtle difference. I've said this on stream a number of times, and I genuinely think it's true. Fifth edition is a superhero fantasy game. The
yes,
characters are incredibly powerful superhero entities, really. Even at first level, compared to, like, your commoner with 4 hit points and +3 to hit. Um, so in my experience, character deaths are very rare in 5e. They can happen.
yeah,
Absolutely, they can happen. Um, and it also depends on the style of play of the GM. My statement about them being very difficult to do, they're very difficult to do if you balance encounters,
yes,
because balancing encounters does exactly what we've said, which it's a nice balanced encounter. And as we've already stated, 5e characters are powerful, so in a balanced encounters they should win through.
yeah, and it even gives you tools to make sure
Yeah.
the encounter is easy, medium, hard, deadly.
Mhm.
Um, I guess characters. I mean, there are many ways characters can die,
Yeah.
and it's not just from encounters.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Not from I should say, not just from combat encounters.
Mhm.
They should, there's also the player going down a certain route
Yeah.
where that route can lead to death, and you can that's where the old GM friend of "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
And you can say it in many different ways, but eventually it all boils down to, are you sure
Yeah.
you'll want to do this? Because this is you go into a situation that you might not be able to win, and if that continues, what happens,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that is one situation. But then there is the character death where it's just something that almost comes out of the blue in combat. You've got some epic fight, and the dice just don't go your way,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's it.
Well, I mean, with the way the rules are written with 5e, and don't get me wrong, like I was just saying, if the encounter is unbalanced, it's easy. As a GM, you can just change the numbers so the players can't win against the encounter. That that's literally the easiest thing to do,
Yeah,
whether it's kind of lower level characters or higher level characters. But with the way that healing works, with the action economy, the way that works, with
death
um,
saves.
death saves on top of that, um, it's difficult. And don't get me wrong, you can sort of have a combat where one of the characters goes down, and you could have the evil big bad just basically hit the downed character a number of times to ensure that they die. I prefer to run my games with the players being the cinematic protagonists, and
Yes.
it seems, unless there's a very good reason why that NPC would do that, and occasionally I do it for the shock value on particular NPCs, and I don't do it to the point of death, but they might just hit them that once to tick up a death save or two,
Yeah.
to suddenly go, well, if they roll a natural one now, or if they fail a death save, and it creates a degree of peril. um, it skews the encounter a little bit, but I've never had anybody particularly die of that, because everybody then focuses fire on, let's get this person back on their feet.
Yeah. But thinking about kind of PC deaths, so it's happened
Yeah.
either through so let's take the combat one for example. So it's happened in combat. A player character character's gone down,
Yeah.
and the party isn't equipped with the way to bring them back. How do you approach that? How do you approach that as a table? What are you? And I guess that's kind of part of Jack's question. What are your tricks? Because it's a sad moment for
Mm,
players. When we had this the other
well,
week in the Eberron game, it was sad.
yeah.
And so how do you approach that? How do you deal with that with sensitivity or
Well, I mean, that's the important thing, really. Um, if it does happen, I always attempt, if I can see it happening, because these things, apart from first level, where a monster gets a critical hit on a first level character and does excessive damage to them, so they get instant killed,
yeah
which can happen at first level. Um, things are going bad long before the character gets anywhere near sort of dying. um, and you have to, what I do, you don't have to, it's what I do, is you can start weaving into that some kind of sort of either answer to that, some way of eventually them coming back, or you can sort of message the player, which I've done in the past, sort of privately, and go, um, how do you want to do this? It's kind of almost the reverse of, you've killed somebody, your character is looking like they are going to die. Do you want to go down in a blaze of glory? Do you want it to be permanent? Do you want the powerful fifth edition magics to save you? I mean, there are sort of healing magics. There's revivify, there's raise dead, there's resurrection, there's true resurrection.
yeah
There are so many mechanics, and I'll come on to those in a minute. So rather than just go, well, hard luck, you managed to roll 3 death fails, you are dead. Quite often, there's been a conversation whilst it is all happening live, um, to to kind of try and be sensitive about that. Um, of course, those conversations don't necessarily happen if it's very much a case of, do you really want to do this? If you do this,
Yeah.
you're not just in jeopardy or you are in peril. You will most likely die. And I
Yeah.
do open rolls, so I'm more than happy for the dice to save someone if they want to. But just as I do open rolls for that and for the monsters to miss, the open rolls are there to to say, look, I haven't fudged it. You haven't escaped because of me wanting you to escape. The dice have told that story, and yeah, you got lucky. You know that 5% on a d20 that you needed, you managed to get, and that's an epic moment anyway of success.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so it's I always like deaths if they happen to have a point to them. I'm
Yeah.
not a fan of pointless deaths. I'm not a fan of you walk into this trap and it kills you. Um, um, you, you know, it just doesn't sit right. Certain types of game that happens all of the time, but to me though, you're kind of not playing a sort of role play game at that point. You're playing more like a
Yeah.
board game,
Yeah.
which is totally justified and just equally as good fun, but a different kind of fun. Um, so that's how I approach it in fifth E, getting up to the point of death and kind of going, well, it's looking like this is not going your way.
Yeah.
How do you want to do it? And in the past, I have allowed someone to have that moment of a blaze of glory before they expire. You know, they roll that final death save and they get a burst of um, adrenaline so that they can do one final act of glory before they go down, sort of thing. So it doesn't feel as pointless, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you ever have players? And I probably the answer is probably yes to this, but and you don't have to reveal who, how, or what. But do you ever have players conspire to actually bring their character to an end
Oh yeah,
early?
yeah, absolutely. I have a funny story about that. Not with me specifically, but in a live role play game. One of my friends, very long time ago now, was telling me that he was going to go to a Call of Cthulhu live role play game. Um, it was telling me after the matter of fact, so he said I did this, which made it even funnier. And back in the day, especially Call of Cthulhu games, they tend to be a little bit more luxurious than camping in a field. You know, people have nice costumes. They stay in sort of nice kind of sort of venues.
Fancy.
So the ticket price is fairly expensive, as you would imagine. And what he basically did is he brought along two characters to play, but didn't tell the organisers at all. So on the Friday evening, they thought this was his main character for the weekend, having paid quite a substantial amount to take part. And he was playing a doddering old professor. And the first thing that was a little bit scary that happened, he just dropped to the floor. The other
Right.
players came across to him and went, "What's going?" He went, I'm dead." He went, "What? No, yeah, it's quite obvious, cardiac arrest." And by this point, the referees and the organisers were panicking. It's like, well, I mean, uh, but they've got the rest of the weekend to play. And he just pulled it, and you know that was interesting, not just as a joke on the organisers because he
Yeah.
had a second character, but quite often I hear um, players fundamentally, both in live play and in games, I wish there were more character deaths. So I wished more characters died to give it that gritty feel, to make it
Yeah.
feel. And what they actually mean is, I wished more other characters died. Obviously, not my
Yeah.
character, because you
Yeah.
know I'm the hero, aren't I? And I don't mean it mean, but they don't necessarily mean they want their character to die, but they want it
Yeah.
to have more deaths. Um, and of course, you can kind of do that by engaging them with interesting NPCs and have the NPCs, unfortunately, um, sort of perish. Um, but in terms of sort of killing a lot of player characters off just to give it that feeling of deadliness is not necessarily the right thing to do. But
Yeah.
this role player that went to the Cthulhu managed to help that, because everybody thought he was a player character, and you kind of think player characters have kind of plot shield and sort of death shield on a Friday night,
Yeah.
especially when you've paid for a weekend experience, and to have a character die on there really set the scene, and that was a very generous thing that he did for it. And even the organizers were a little bit kind of worried about that as well.
I guess that kind of works to Jack's point of any good examples of them working well narratively. I mean,
Yeah.
for a Call of Cthulhu game, that would work incredibly well narratively.
um,
Um, do you
Absolutely.
have any? Do you have any examples then of character deaths that you don't mind sharing that have actually really been used for the narrative, either something recently
Well,
or
I mean, you're very aware of the most
well,
recent one
yes, I
because you
am. Yeah,
mentioned it. Minty.
Minty.
Hiya, Jocelyn, if you are in chat still. Um, I, I deliberately, I knew right from the outset that Minty wasn't going to die because of I'd already had this in the back of my mind for a long time without conspiring with Jocelyn. Um, um, but for plot reasons, with the patron Minty has and the patron that she potentially could have and everything else. But I wasn't orchestrating it. I kind of, that encounter with that NPC where Minty did perish, there were several moments and several like, leave now, I will kill you, leave.
Yes.
It wasn't like, oh, I'm going to deliberately kill Minty as a character so we can have this resurrection. But
No, no, there
Minty,
is a lot of chances
yeah,
to
yeah.
walk away.
And I think that probably added to it in many ways, because you as onlookers, although you weren't there onlooking, could go, well, yeah, I mean, that's dead then. That really is dead, because there were several chances that you could have walked away and you didn't. Ooh, um, and that added more to the shock, and it was almost tear jerking, I think, for some of the players when they realised that Minty technically was dead, and what was going to happen next. You were all trying to gather together your diamonds and try and work a way of kind of raising the dead, or whatever. And I think that most definitely had a very, very strong impact for the viewers in chat and on catch up. Minty had already been ghouled by a vampire sort of previously. Um,
That's going to
and
win well.
yeah, and what actually happened was sort of halfway through this horrible sort of scene of the characters kind of distraught over Minty's demise. Minty sort of rose from the dead as an undead, as a vampire. So a player character race, it's perfectly legit, not even homebrewed. But even Minty at this point didn't realise this until I gave them that information. So I've always got some kind of cards up my sleeve in the games that I particularly run. Not necessarily to save the day or to save the characters, but to try and give that final moment a final moment if it does happen, or rather the opportunity to it. Um, Losing characters, especially in a system like Fifth Ed, can be fairly harsh and traumatizing. If it, some of our games have lasted 3-4 years already. These are some of the more recent games, and to lose a character that you've invested so much time and had so much fun with. Um, I think it can be quite traumatizing in a way, you know. So I am very, very much sensitive that a character isn't just a playing piece in the games that we run. You invest a lot of your personality into it, a lot of your time, all of the interactions and the like, and I am sort of sensitive to that. Um, but I'm not a fan of bringing characters back willy-nilly. I'm
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah,
fine with the way that Minty was brought back. That was cinematic, dramatic, and has opened up so many more sort of storylines. Uh, uh, I'm kind of going to sound stupid here because I wrote it. So I think that is exactly the way it should be done. But of course, I think that because I wrote it. If I was
yeah,
writing something and I didn't think it should be done that way, then I shouldn't be writing it. Um, but I think you can lose a lot from the role play aspect of the game where you just go, it doesn't matter whether I die in this encounter. We've got a 12th level priest that can just bring me back.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. You think you got that wonderful safety net?
yeah, yeah. And I understand it. If you're playing that kind of game, I definitely understand it. We all play computer games where you respawn. We all play computer games where you've got multiple lives, and when you die, it just ticks off. It's totally understandable why it exists, but at the same point, I think it potentially removes a lot of potential dramatics. Why would you get upset if someone dies because you can just bring them back? I'm talking about sort of party members, obviously. Not
Yeah,
everybody can afford resurrections and the like. Um, so I like to say that I've always been a fan of the way that Matt Mercer does it. Apart from I used to do it, not necessarily before him, but I am much older than him, so probably yes, I did. In the fact, I've always thought, and I don't use what he does exactly the same, but there should be something that can call out to the departed spirit to try and encourage it back rather than just the
yeah,
power of a spell to do it. And that creates drama, that creates role play. That means that the party or whatever needs to congregate and tell tales of this fallen hero, and it creates a really nice sort of scene. And then having a percentage chance of it working or failing also gives you that moment of dramatics of will it work, you know. Um,
yeah.
and I think that is a more fun way of handling just bringing characters from back.
Absolutely, because the character itself gets a say.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, it's. I mean, again, I'm going back to my hazy knowledge of D&D and its spells, even though I run it. Um, but I know that some of them are, a willing soul can come back. And but some systems are really geared towards character death. Like we
yeah,
played Morkborg. Morkborg is absolutely geared towards character death. We created 4 characters each because we thought that they were going to just go. And so, but some, I guess it's there are systems where it really encourages characters to have longevity and be more heroic. In which case, you get more attached to them, and then it becomes more of a sensitive subject.
yeah.
But there are systems where it is an active part of the system and
Oh, yeah,
it's expected.
yeah, yeah,
And in that case, you can have some fun with it. You can
yeah,
have a lot of, I mean, it becomes the opposite of kind of, I know I'm all right because I've got a 5th level healer. You'll be
yeah,
like, well, I know I'm all right because I've got 3 more characters queued up. So off this
yeah.
one goes into the meat grinder.
No, absolutely, and this is where we move away from. We've spent a lot of time on 5th edition because that is one way. There are plenty of other games, Call of Cthulhu, for instance, where you don't expect your character to survive. You are classic Call of Cthulhu is what I'm saying. That there is kind of pulp, which is equally good fun, and various other type of games. But talking about classic Call of Cthulhu here, you play normal people that go against the incredibly mind-shattering supernatural, the mythos, and you as a player know you're going to lose against this. The very best you possibly could do is hold it at bay. But eventually, these things, they have an eternity to plot and come back again. Um, and that's quite refreshing, knowing that from the starting point. You can enjoy the journey of the character and see how far you can get. Um, we Again, this is going back to my live role playing days when I ran live role playing. We ran a game called Slasher, and it was sort of based upon slasher movies, and you were actively encouraged to bring multiple characters, and the concept is um, die in an entertaining way, not survive,
Yep.
do all of the things in the movies. It was not played for people to survive. It was played for people to have really fun with all of these tropes.
Yeah.
Um, and it was great. When the generator goes down, you do separate. You don't go, well, let's stay together. One person goes to look at the generator, the other one goes to look for some firewood in the woods, and there's a scream. And you do all of the tropes that are done in those kind of movies, and it was a blast because right from the outset you knew that the character you were playing is going to die, and it was just trying to find the most entertaining and fun way for that to actually sort
Yeah.
of happen. Um, and it meant that people could bring multiple different types of character that played into that. We even had a group of several players that came as original D&D players with their monster manual that they were intent on trying to summon a demon. Um,
Amazing.
it was just great fun. So deaths can be fun to play around with in the right sort of systems. Really, they don't have to be. But I totally understand that if you're playing a long campaign, it can also be traumatic. But having a moment of glory as well, being sacrificing oneself for the good of your party or others, can be an epic way to bring an end to the character's sort of story, really. And that is an important thing. Sometimes a character's story ends before the campaign does. And it doesn't have to end with death. It can actually end with retirement. You've
Yeah.
achieved everything that you really set out to do, and um, for plot reasons, for story reasons, it just makes little to no more sense to continue moving forward with the story, and um, that can be challenging. But you need to embrace that success of completing that story, and then try and create a new concept to carry on within the game with a different sort of character and story as well. Um, but certainly, I'm more than happy to admit I've been in tears around the table a few times when things have happened, and it's been long-lived campaigns, and everybody gets very, very emotional. I think that's one of the great things about role players is out of all of the types of gaming, sort of war gaming, board gaming, computer gaming, sort of role playing, there's a lot of emotion put into games, and it can be well, it's beautiful to see, but also overwhelming as well.
Yeah.
It's and that's the appeal of it. That really is the appeal, to actually feel something. Um,
Yeah. So we have another question from Jack. I don't
yeah,
know if you've got time to tackle it now, but that was the Pre-written campaign versus homebrew. What's the
Yeah,
preference? Any favorite pre-written campaigns you've taken a lot of inspiration from,
yep.
or inspiration for? What do you find easier to run?
Um, this is fairly easy for me to answer, really. And this is once again my preference. Other people might have different preferences, but I prefer my own campaigns. Um, that doesn't mean I don't like published content, and I will cherry pick published content out of books and place them in my homebrew campaign. There's so many great creative people out there that have just got wonderful ideas, and it'd just be silly to ignore those brilliant ideas. But if you take something and you make it your own, your campaign, you know how it works almost
Yeah,
instantly. You know how those NPCs are going to react, and I genuinely just find it easier to do that. Um, I find it much more difficult. It's 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 not impossible to do, but I find it harder when someone says, "Can you run this book for us?" Because you then need to read the book. They want the book experience, so you want to give them
yeah,
that experience. You need to understand the book. You then need to work out what the writers were trying to do with the book to give them that kind of experience. Then you need to break it all down and sort of rebuild it so you can run that.
yeah.
And then there's always the anxiety of you're going to do something wrong, you're going to make a mistake, or you're going to
What if I
misinterpret
misread
something.
something?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, no, absolutely. Um, and that's if they want the true book experience, because if they don't and they want something that is just kind of based off the book, you're back into, well, let's just go with the flow
yeah.
and do this. Um, uh, I, I I don't dislike um, published materials. My
You've got a whole
favourite,
shelf of them behind you.
yeah, yeah. I mean, as I say, mainly for inspiration and sort of cherry picking. Um, I really, really like Dragon Heist. I
Yeah,
think that is one of my top favourite published things. Um, I don't think I think it's a difficult book to write, so I think they've wrote it in quite possibly the best way they could have written it. But again, there's a lot of wheels and stuff, but there's a lot of just one lines in there that you don't really notice until you start playing it, and then they'll have an encounter with somebody. Nothing.
yeah,
Go into a shop, and then sort of a couple of sessions on, they go, "Oh yeah, we met so and so. We can pop back there and have a, it's really nicely tied
yeah,
together,
yeah.
um, and a good
Although
balance of combat and role playing." Sorry.
I did notice though, and I'm not going to give any spoilers,
Mhm.
but because I've got a copy of it over there, and it does feel a bit like here's the first encounter or first few encounters, then it's up to you
Yeah, yeah,
for a bit.
yeah,
Make some stuff up and then go back. I mean, Leprechauns mentioned the Wild Beyond the Witchlight. I mean, again, I've got a
yeah,
copy of it over there, and one day soon I really want to run
yeah.
that.
It's
Um, uh,
it's it's a great one. Is Wild. It's whimsical and fun and yeah, very very interesting. I did like Rime of the Frost Maiden. I think it's called that.
yeah,
Yeah, the Icewind Dale book
yeah,
anyway. Partially because it was returned to Icewind Dale, and my second edition
yeah,
hook of Icewind Dale was really really nice. Plus, I'm a big fan of The Thing, the movie, and there was a lot of certainly early, not references to The Thing, but it was just that it's freezing cold here. You know, there is this eternal winter. Everything is becoming frozen. So I like that aspect of playing up the horror of that as well. But there are many. Curse of Strahd is aged, um, but it's a very fine vintage, a very very nice
yeah.
written campaign.
I like to throw in. I've got the Candlekeep Mysteries,
Yeah,
and I like to throw in occasionally just one of those.
yeah,
But what I've been doing with my players is just as you do, reskin it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I run a modified version of the Forgotten Realms. I've got the third edition book, and that's where the history stops. I do not run Spell Plague. I don't like Spell Plague. I didn't like where it went in fourth edition or fifth edition. So basically, wherever it was in third edition, that's it. But so yeah, I incorporate some of those elements from that and twist it to my story, and run that, and I quite enjoy that because it's nice to have the odd session where I don't have to think as much
Yeah.
or I don't have to plan, and then we're back to kind of regular content, and then it's all my own story again. But I do like to incorporate those elements. So again, from I think the Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft's a good one
Yeah.
because that's not an adventure. Obviously, it's a source book, but there's so much that you can borrow from that
Oh, I
to
thought you
just create
didn't
your
like
own.
Domains of Dread.
I didn't like being in a domain of dread. I'm more than happy to run them.
You're more than happy to inflict the misery upon your players.
I feel I should inflict misery on players now. You've taught me well, Andy,
Oh,
with
there we
steel
go.
skin
It was
ribbons.
it was a walk in the park, was Mordant. A walk in the
Yeah.
park.
Yeah. Trouble is, that park is the kind of park you don't go through at nighttime or daytime.
No, it was like I say, this isn't me going. I don't like published content. I love published content, and I draw great inspirations from them.
You
Um,
have published content coming out soon.
well,
Go to the Kickstarter.
I mean that's a very important point actually, because in writing what we're writing, I'm not finding it difficult, but I'm try and make it easier for GMs to access the information I'm trying to tell them, in conjunction with Matt, of course. And that's proving a very interesting exercise, trying to make them very understandable and very readable and easy for a GM to go, okay, well I've got this part now and I don't need to worry about anything else. And um, yeah, it's a challenge. Kind of writing encounters is not an issue. It's kind of formatted in a way that is really user friendly, that we're trying to work on at the moment. So yeah, but did that answer all of the question? That all of
I
that
think it
question really?
did. I mean, it's what do you find easier to run? But I mean, you've already said that that's your own stuff.
Yeah,
I think, except for the one about the smoke, I think we've covered
yeah, yeah,
Jack's questions. Although only Jack can answer whether we've covered Jack's questions. So
yeah,
please let us know, Jack, whether
yeah,
whether
yeah.
Andy's covered your questions, and if not, bring
Uh,
him back and make him answer.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we are sort of coming to an end now. I can see that we've had a great audience in chat. Thank you very, very much. Tomorrow night, 6 o'clock club at 6 o'clock. I'm not sure whether I'll be by myself or we might have a guest with us. But I'm favouring talking about the smoke tomorrow. So that might change if we get some good questions in Discord. Speaking of Discord, if you look down in the comment section below, there is a link there. Whether you're watching live now or watching on catch up, check us out on Discord. We've got a massive community, a great community,
Join us.
indeed, and we don't just talk about role playing games. It's a nice, safe, non-toxic place to hang out. Before we do go, a couple of bits of information. I have now managed to work out how to schedule YouTube videos. So we've scheduled Christian's Blade in the Dark um, game for
But
next
Blades in the
Tuesday.
dark,
Blades in the Dark.
Blades in the dark. You make it sound like I'm waiting for people with a knife.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's just Blades in the Dark. Blade in the Dark. Blades in the Dark. So that's scheduled already. So you can go there, click on it, get a reminder. That'll be next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock after the 6 o'clock club. We are also looking at doing a Shiver game. We've got Charlie the writer of Shiver, coming in to run us a Shiver game, and that will be on the 14th of March, Tuesday the 14th of March. I'll be putting that up in a few days' time once I've got all the graphics sorted and everything nice. We've got a couple of players for Sunday night's improv. If we can get one or two more players, that might fire as well. So please come along, enjoy it. It should be a blast. Um, if you want to find out more information, check us out in Discord. And obviously, if you haven't already, please give us a little bit of a sub. You can hit the button down there,
And
and
hit
the
the
like
like
and
button
well.
as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
Only 3 of you have done it so far, so
that's
please,
okay.
please, please like us.
Um,
We do this for the adoration.
they might not like what we've said. They might want more
What
character
you
death.
said.
I mean, if I don't get 20 likes about not killing characters, maybe that's what I have to start doing. Maybe they are telling me they want those characters to die.
He'll do it, folks. He'll do it.
Well, only time will find out. Only time will find out. No, genuinely, thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. I will catch you all tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. In the meantime, look after each other, look after yourselves, stay safe, and good night from me.
Bye, everyone.